Hello, it's Henry. I'm back with BLU Review. So let me get a few things out of the way before I dive into this episode. I want to thank everybody who's been watching and who liked my videos and gave me the thumbs up, a la Dale Cooper. And yeah, it means a lot. I appreciate it. I'm trying to kind of expand my base or my presence online and, hopefully eventually you know, some stuff will catch on, like Flickr Street, my original work. But stuff like this catches on too. That's cool too. Um, I never intended to go back to reviewing movies. Um, After I was doing it in print in the late '90s and up to about 2001. But my ex-wife persuaded me to do some for her, and I did, and then to do some on camera, and I did some, all of which are on this channel somewhere, embarrassing as they are. But once again, my ex fiance talked about maybe having a show or something with her and one other person, and then I said I'd be up for that. With the reviewing movies, but using different perspectives on movies, like getting deep into the subtext of the movies. Um, it's one of the many projects that we had planned out that either tentatively or uh, carefully and in detail that you know got aborted when what happened. So anyway, um, I figure what the hell, I'll just do this. I don't have to use my hands as much because they've been bothering me a lot lately, and I'm not really able to draw or play guitar very much at all, really, right at the moment. I can type better than I could several days ago, and I can write longhand pretty well. So, and I do basic tasks around the house. You probably wouldn't know it if you actually saw this house. You might recoil in sheer terror, but um, okay. So I'm just gonna skim over a few films that I've watched in the last couple of days that constitute the theme for November 1st, which is folk horror. And of course, this kind of subgenre has gotten fairly popular in recent years. More people are curious about it because of movies like, well, The Witch and Midsummer are probably the two really big ones that got the most attention. But there's a lot of predecessors to those movies and influences on them that are equally, if not even more, essential to check out. Not to take away from either of those films. Um, I personally liked The Witch quite a bit better than Midsummer, but I did like Midsummer fairly well. I liked it better than Hereditary by the same director, which also was kind of a breakout film for him. Um, so, I'm in an A24 group on Facebook, and they constantly are having these back and forths over which of these two guys is the greatest up and coming. Eggers, who did um, The Witch and The Lighthouse, or Astor, who did Hereditary and Midsummer. And then some people love both of them and hardly like any other movies made by distributed by A24. Um, the ones that I like distributed by A24 are none of those movies. The ones I'm really passionate about are odd ones, like Under the Skin. I love Ex Machina, um, First Reformed, which I talked about on this show recently. Those are probably my favorite ones that A24's had their hand in, but they've done a bunch of other stuff. The vast majority of their stuff I have not seen. And then of the ones I have seen, which are probably just the more popular ones, I've liked them, but some of them left me with a kind of a, I don't know. Uncut Gems left me with a kind of a meh feeling, especially given the hype around it. But that it's not a genre movie, but it had its good points. I'm not a huge Sandler fan, even when he's dramatic. I liked him in The Wedding Singer, okay. I grew up in the 80s. Um, I didn't like him in Punch Drunk Love, even though that was a lauded critical performance by a great director. So anyway, I'm way off topic of folk horror. So I rewatched The Virgin Spring this week, and I got to say that's definitely a predecessor to folk horror. Bergman in general, his style, and especially, of course, in his black and white films, is a huge, strong influence with the kind of medieval settings, um, and the very stark, chiaroscuro black and white photography. Um, I love his stuff. He's a director that has made a ton of movies, of course, as everyone knows, and is one of the most popular and well known foreign directors in the history of cinema. Um, and he was actually recognized, a good bit by the Academy, which is, you know, saying a lot because they've always, but more so in recent years, tended to hit the lowest common denominator. Um, so yeah, I got into the Seventh Seal in 1992. I liked Max von Sydow from The Exorcist and Flash Gordon, so I'm like, you know, let's see him play this knight playing chess with death, and I loved it. And I eventually upgraded it. I eventually got it on DVD, and then I upgraded it to Blu-ray. It's a pretty beautiful movie. It was the first movie with subtitles that I ever rented. So think about that. That's like early in like January, February, like February 1992. The only other movie I'd seen with subtitles all the way through was Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, which I saw in the theater in 1990, Pedro Almodovar. Um, I never really had a problem with subtitles. I know a lot of people do. Now I watch subtitles on films that, are in English, and it helps me to hear and make out certain things, and I like to know the names of the characters and places and how to spell them correctly. Um, so I put subtitles on everything unless it doesn't come as an option. So Seventh Seal, as I've mentioned before, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it on this channel. I guess I have, yeah. That The Last House on the Left is a remake of it, just transposed to a different century in a different country. Um, and there's quite a lot of parallels. There's quite a lot of differences, of course. Um, as far as remakes go, it's a good remake in that sense. I like remakes that are able to keep the structure and the themes, but have a free hand to change a lot of cosmetic things, but only if they really really get the themes and the structure, and are able to make the characters somewhat recognizable as the originals. For instance, Hitman to me is a great remake of Get Carter, also a great film. Um, that's just an example, though. But Last Something Left is to me a great remake. Now, whether it's a great film or not, that's totally up to you to decide that. It's an important film as far as boundaries it pushed, but um, it's one of the weaker of the kind of really micro budget indie auteur 70s horror films. I can't say it's on the level of Messiah of Evil. I can't say it's on the level of even of The Witch That Came from the Sea. Those are stronger films in just about every way. Um, but I have kind of a soft spot for Last House. I do have it on Blu-ray, but I found it really inexpensively, and I sold my deluxe DVD, and it was hard getting rid of. I guess people are, I don't know. Um, so the Virgin Spring, basically Max von Sydow has this little extended family that lives with him, and he's a very God-fearing man, and his wife is a God-fearing woman, and their daughter is uh, their only living child is their daughter, who's a virgin, and who is Christian, but she has a lightheartedness too. She doesn't know, she's not as solemn about it as everyone else in the house, and she wants to have fun, and even if it means going to church on a horse ride, which she has to do after sleeping late one day, she, that's fun. She's going to make it a good time. And conversely, a woman living with them who's a bit of a wildcat, as they call her, very promiscuous and pregnant at the time. She is, you know, they're strong contrasts in demeanor and in coloring. And I know it's black and white, but the virginal daughter is like got blonde hair and wears like light clothes, and the other one wears slightly darker clothes and has long, very dark hair and this little swarthier skin, and or olivey, and she's rough, and she doesn't worship God. She worships Odin. She's still into the old gods of Sweden and of the Northern Europe. So um, in Last House on the Left, I kind of feel like her character was they they split her character into two different characters. One of the characters they split into was Mary Collingwood's best friend, and in that sense, because she was a little bit wilder than Mary, and had done some drugs, and it looked like she slept around a little bit. She was a cool chick, though. I mean, she wasn't like, you know, cruel or angry like this character in that Seventh Seal in the Virgin Spring. Um, but I think they also took that kind of mean streak in her and put it into Sadie in Last House on the Left as well. So the way it was adapted was interesting. It was originally a folk tale from, I believe, the 13th or 14th century. And the interview with David Hess on the Last House Blu-ray, he's just tripping hard on the fact that it came from a folk tale of the 13th century. He's just like completely like, wow, this is not just kid stuff. We're actually adapting some heavy literature. Um, so he's great. He was great. Rest in peace, David Hess. So, um, but anyway, so these two have a contrast, and the Max sends I think his character's name is like Tor or something like that. That was his name was in the original, uh, medieval poem where this story comes from, and he sends the wild child to accompany his daughter, and she kind of weaves and bobs back and forth between uh, being on the path with the young girl to the church and just kind of scampering around. She encounters an old man who gets a little fresh with her, and she splits, and then comes upon uh, our heroine who has befriended this horrid trio of family of kind of reprobates, and she likes to have fun, so she's real friendly, but she is also innocent and very naive and about human nature, and so her faith kind of does poorly by her in this sense. Um, she's not a survivor like her friend who also lives with them, the wildcat is. So you know, pretty soon it's getting a bit sinister, and they rape and murder her, and this was a pretty controversial movie when it came out, but it was nominated for, and I want to say it won the 1960 Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. But it did have a little bit of censorship problems, and I can kind of see why, because even though there's nothing graphic uh, with the violence and the sex, the rape, it's very intense and it's very obvious what's happening, and it's very realistically done. So it makes it, like in Texas Chainsaw, it makes you think you see more than you really do. It's still an adult experience without having like explicit, body parts involved. It's a classic because basically anyway, it's a classic for many reasons, but these three ragtag, morons, they happen on to Tor, I think that's his name's house, and at first they're given hospitality until Max and his wife realize that, hey, hold on, uh, they are they're the reason our daughter never came home, and so especially Max, wreaks a terrible vengeance on them, even the kid, which is probably, I guess, to some people, the most shocking violent scene. Rape scene would be the most shocking in general. But yeah, he shows no mercy. And again, even though he's a Christian, um, he doesn't favor pacifism when you like fucking kill his daughter and violate her. Um, so yeah, it's a great movie. The look of it is great, and it's just stark black and white. And it is a horror movie in the sense that it kind of has a genre, fits into a genre that later became a legitimate subgenre of horror, which is the rape revenge story. And it's kind of one of the forebears of that kind of story. You know, it came before, way before Ms. 45, before Thriller, Cruel Picture. Um, you know, it's like really like one of the godfathers of that kind of film, um, and one of the very, very best. It could be the best. You know, it's hard to say. The reason I say it's hard to say is because I think a film that is more archetypal of that genre would be one where the woman herself takes the revenge. The woman who's raped takes revenge. But obviously, you know, the rape revenge movies also include the family members, friends, and lovers taking revenge on the raped woman if she's been killed, also. So, um, I recommend this movie. Um, obviously, the Criterion edition is really excellent, and if you want to find movies that set the stage for this folk horror revival, other than The Wicker Man, which Midsummer does. I don't want to say it rips off, but it mimics it in certain ways. You know, it has the seemingly the same basic uh, idea behind it, and it's just executed a bit differently and very modern, and for the point of view of a woman rather than a man, as in The Wicker Man. But um, there's similarities. The Wicker Man is excellent. Of course, I recommend that one too, but I'm not reviewing that one today. Um, then I watched November, which is a strange recent one, I think from 2016, 2017. It's an Estonian film. It's in black and white, and its look, uh, its look is not really consistent. I mean, a lot of the movie is very dark, and the photography is great through the whole movie. But some of the scenes, especially towards the beginning, are revelatory. The lighting is so great because they're shot in the snow, and they flooded the snow with light, and it's just almost like this, hard to describe. But I'll tell you a movie that strongly influenced it, that also influenced folk horror movies, is a period piece called Markita Lazarova. I'm not really reviewing that, but I did watch some of it a couple weeks ago, and that movie is probably better than any of the movies I'm discussing tonight. It's just a sheer masterpiece. Um, but we'll get into that another time. Maybe I'll do some Criterion titles and talk about Markita Lazarova. But remember that title because that's an important film, and it was kind of an underrated, overlooked film by a lot of people, but it's getting its due now. You know, it can appeal to art house people, you know, all the way down to genre fans for various reasons. It's not exactly a genre movie. It is a historical, you know, action and drama, but so it's probably a little more Shakespearean than supernatural, though he did get supernatural quite a bit. Um, but November is totally supernatural. I mean, we started the movie with this thing called a krat, Kratt, and apparently that's directly from Estonian mythology. And the guy who wrote the novel on which this film is based appropriated the krat from mythology directly. And the krat is basically spare parts, you know, metallic, wooden, whatever, strung together by yarn and thread and animated with a human soul that has been given to Satan. And so it does, as the best of its ability, being anatomically not human at all, humanoid at all. It does work. It does things, you know, around the house, I guess you could say. So I have a fear that uh, my battery is dying, so I may have to return to this. I may have to do a part two like I did last time. So let me wrap up part one now, and I'll come back with the final verdict on, you know, the second film here, November, and then we'll get into some other films. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.